In this lesson, I'm going to teach you about using local and session storage in JavaScript. So let's get cracking. First, pull out Visual Studio Code, as we've been using in many of my other videos, and open a folder on your computer somewhere. I have created one on my desktop called Session Storage. So it is completely empty. And as I get started with this, I'd like to pose a silly question, which is, what if a computer could remember you virtually forever? Well, that's in a way what local storage is about. It's a way of storing some information that can stay in your browser forever, at least until you either delete it as the programmer, or maybe the computer meets an untimely demise like burning up in a fire. As I introduce this topic, I want you to think about strings. You know what a string is, and you know what other variable types are in JavaScript, like numbers or objects. The information that we're going to be storing in this video has to be a string. It can't be the other types of things. It has to be turned. It can start off as one of the other types of things, like an object or a number, but in order to be saved forever using local storage or session storage, it has to be turned into a string. So the focus here is on storing strings. All right, let's go ahead and create a new file, and I'll just call it index.html. Could be anything, and then I'll do the exclamation point and start off my document, and then I'll minimize my little navigation window over there. And let's just move right in to the body tag, and let's create a place where we're going to be displaying some information. So I'll say PID equals greeting and hello. So right now, this web page is not personalized to you, but it will be. So let's go ahead and add in some JavaScript that's going to allow us to have a personalized greeting. So I'll say save your, before I do that comment, I need a JavaScript tag. So script, and then end script, there we go. And in there, now I'll put in my comments. I'll say save your name to the browser, and I'll say, just kind of highlighting here that the first argument in this method that I'm about to use is the key, and it can be any string. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. I'll say local storage, and notice that the IntelliSense here in the code editor is recognizing that within the JavaScript language that there is an object that we can write to called local storage. It's part of the language, and we'll do dot set item. So that's a method on it, and it takes two arguments, two parameters. The first one is the key. So I'm just going to put my name as the key, and then the value is going to be my name. All right, now next I want to be able to display this thing that I have saved, and I want to put it into this ID tag right here, or this P tag right here with this particular ID. And when I do that, I want to first check and make sure there is something in local storage. So I'll say if local storage.length is greater than 0. So this is kind of like the same way that we use arrays, checking to see if something's in there. And if there is, then let's use the DOM to address that element named greeting. Document.getElement, oops, get element by ID. Greeting. And you remember how to set the text of a regular element like that in HTML? It's the inner HTML property. And then just to make it clean on this, in this window, I'll hit return right here and put my string in there. I'll say hello, comma, and now I'm going to reference the thing that has been stored. Local storage dot, and instead of set, this time I'm going to use get item, and I only need to use the key in this case. So the key is essentially like a variable. It's some name that can have something else behind it. And I'll say some more string stuff there, concatenating it, and I'll say welcome back. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and see if this works. I have the plugin live server installed, so I will say open with live server. It's going to open up a browser window, and it says, hello Dagan, welcome back. So note that it doesn't say the original thing. It has overwritten that text with this string that contains this item that acts like a variable that has been stored in the browser, in the browser's memory. Now let's get rid of this for a second so that we're not setting it anymore. And then I'm going to close that and I'm going to reopen it again. Okay, so notice that even though I am not setting it in here anymore, it's still there. It still remains. Let me just go ahead and close this entirely. Let's try it again. Get rid of it. Start it up. And it's still there. Okay. I probably have some other things saved in memory, but I'll show you where you can see this from a developer's perspective, that it has been stored in your browser's memory. I'm going to right-click on the page and do Inspect, and then I'm going to go over to Application, and you can see different types of storage that's there, and within this particular one, I can, related to the IP address that I'm using right now, I can see that the key my name is in there and the value associated with that is my name, and it is stored. So even though I've been closing and reopening this browser, because I used that method local storage.setItem, this is semi-permanently set in there. Now as it relates to setting these types of values, how many can you set? I haven't tested. It's probably a lot. Maybe you could do a Google search on there. But at a high level, you should be able to, do hundreds of them or whatever number you need. Just out of curiosity, if you were to go someplace like Amazon.com and right-click on there and inspect, and then go over to Application, so assuming that you use them regularly, and then you can see that they have a bunch of different URLs associated with their website, and if you click on any of those, there are a lot of key values that they're using as developers to help their application perform better. Okay, fun stuff. All right, let's go back now. What if you wanted to clear out this stuff that is in memory? Well, to do that, what you could do is type local storage.clear. All right, so let's go ahead and hit save. And because live server is running, it's going to automatically refresh it in the background. So let's go ahead and go back to this. And application. Notice that it's gone. And I don't know why. I didn't mean to set a breakpoint if I did set a breakpoint. Just go ahead and close that. I'm going to close it, reopen it again, and it's back to the default message there. And if I were to click Inspect and go over to Application, notice that there is not anything stored in there anymore. Okay, in addition to saving just a regular value, you might want to save an object. So let's go ahead and look at that. Now I know I had just recently said you can't save objects, but you can save objects that have been turned into strings. So let's go ahead and play with that. First, let me comment out this right here. And then I'm going to create an object right here. And I'm not even going to use a class. I'm just going to go directly to creating an object. And so I'll say let my object equal curly brace, and I'll say name, and then I'll say, so then this will be for an animal. I'll say name Dave, breed, I'll say Labrador. It's a great dog. I used to have one of those. Okay, and now I'll say local storage dot set item, and I'll say dog for the key, and then I can't just do regular my object right here because this thing is a real JavaScript object. Fortunately though, there is a library that will turn this object into a string, and that is json.stringify. And json.stringify will take an object and turn it into a string. And there's a method to reverse this as well, to take the string and turn it back into an object. But we'll just work with this for the moment. All right, next. Now that I've set it in memory, I'm now going to pull it back out of memory, back out of storage. So I'll say let item equal json.parse. All right, so here's the method to reverse what we just did. And I'm going to address local storage dot get item dog. All right, and now to prove what I've said I've done, I'm going to say console.log, and first I want to look at local storage dot get item dog. All right, let's find out what happens when we do this. According to what I've said, after this, this object should have been turned into a string. So let's just see what that looks like. It's going to look an awful lot like this, but with a subtle difference. So I'll hit save, and I'm going to come back over to here. Let me just close all these. Let's just close that, reopen it. There we go. There's no value there. Hello, welcome back, but there is another variable set, so it's kind of confusing the logic there a little bit. Inspect, let's go over to console, and we see something that looks very much like the object that we had created. The difference, though, if you can note it, is that there's now quotes around the name of the attributes in the object. So that's one of the ways that we turn a regular JavaScript object into a string that represents an object. And we call this JavaScript object notation. And this is a universal communication syntax that is used in a lot of different ways in programming. You take regular objects in not just JavaScript, but lots of different languages potentially, turn it into a syntax like that, and this can be used to transport data all around the web and export and import important information. All right, let's go back to our code, and I want to do console.log, and I want to look at item. Now, item is supposed to have been taken from a string and then turned back into an object. So let's see how that looks different in the console. And I'm going to close all that and start it again. All right, and here in the console, we see first that string, but then here we see an object. And if we expand the object, we can see the things that we set as a part of it. So even though conceptually it holds the same information, the browser recognizes that one of these things is a string and one of these things is an object. All right, so excellent. We've demonstrated turning something back and forth from a regular object to a string, and then the string back to an object again. All right, let's move on to another example. And in this one, let's go ahead and create a file, and we'll make it a cat adoption form. So I'll say cat adoption.html. So what I'm going to do differently now is, instead of what I did before, which is just setting variables right in JavaScript code, I want to take that from a form and set information taken from a form into the browser storage. So I'll do exclamation point return, and then I'm going to make a simple form with just one form field on it to save time. So I'm going to have to put up with a little bit of typing here for a second. So form and then field set, so I can make a form with a little line in it. So style equals width 0 pixels. All right, and then I want a little name on that line. So I'll say legend cat adoption. All right, and so now I'll add my form field. Input type equals, well actually, yeah, input type equals text, and I'm going to enter in a pet name. So name equals s form pet name, and then I will also do ID equals s form pet name. All right, next I want to add a button. Button type equals button add cat. And then eventually I'd like to display this information that I pulled out of the form, put into memory, pulled back out of memory. I'll go ahead and put it on the page. Paragraph ID equals display cat. All right, so now I got a place to put it. Let's go ahead and just really quick check and see how this looks. So I'm going to close that port, close that web browser, reopen it. Okay, here we go. I've got a form which does nothing. This is just cat stuff that I had entered in previously, but it's not part of the program. It's just something that Chrome remembers. All right, I'll just go ahead and close all of this. Now I need to add in some functionality. So underneath this, I'm going to add a script tag. And my intention is to take the text from this input box and save it into local storage. So I'll say function save cat name. Now I don't have a place to use it yet, but I will. And I'll say let s string cat name equal document dot get element by ID s form. So I'll use the ID that I set right up above just to make that more obvious. Copy and paste isn't working so well now, is it? Oh heavens. All right, I guess I'll just keep on typing. Sometimes the Mac keyboards with the, or the Macs with the Windows keyboards in them, the keyboard shortcuts get a little weird. Okay, and then I'll say dot value to get the content of my form field. And so now I have a variable that should contain that value, and so I'll say local storage. So I'm going to set it to my semi-permanent memory in my browser, set item, and I'll use the key cat name, and then I'll pass in this variable as the value. Now it's been set. Now at this point, because this all happens behind the scenes, I wouldn't know if it worked or not. So just as a sanity check, I'll do alert and say cat name save. All right, so let's go ahead and hit save there, and let's go ahead and use this function. I'm going to add it to my button. So I'll say on click equals, and we'll say save cat name. All right, now we're ready to give this a try. So I'll close that and reopen it again. All right, I feel like I should close a bunch of these tabs because I don't need them. Thank you, Chrome, for remembering all these things, but it's not helping me too much. All right, so I'll call my cat Dave because I do have a cat named Dave, and I click add cat, and it says cat name saved, and I can verify that by going inspect and then going over to application. And look at that, cat name Dave, it is correctly stored in there. Fantastic. One thing that annoys me a little bit about this though is after I hit save, it left the name there. So maybe one little modification I could do is I could reference that form field, and again, my copying and pasting is letting me down. There we go. So the value equals nothing. All right, I'll just go back real quick and try this again. Now if I set it, this time it's Stephen, and it cleared it out. Wonderful. Okay, the next thing I'd like to do is I'd like to make it so that it displays the information in memory on the page. Now there's a bunch of different ways I can do this, but I want to have a little bit of delayed gratification in this particular case. So I'll add on another button, and I'll say button type equals button on click equals view cat name. I haven't written the function yet, and then I'll put on the button view cat. And what I'd like to do is in this paragraph tag right here, I would like to put the information from memory. So I'll go ahead and write my function now. Function view cat name, and then document.get element by ID, display cat is what I want to write to, dot inner HTML equals, and then I'll do a line break here. Close this so I have a little bit more real estate to work with. Cat name is plus local storage dot get item cat name. All right, let's go ahead and try this out. I'm just going to go over to the other page, and it is already reloaded for me. And if you recall, I did not have my cat called Dave anymore. It was Steve or something else. So go ahead and hit view cat, and there it is. Cat name is Steven. So everything is working fantastic. Now here's a little question. I've been interacting with catadoption.html. What if I created a different HTML page on the same URL at the same IP address, and I tried to view the information that's saved in my local storage? So just as a little quiz, what do you think? Is it going to display, or is it not going to display? Well, let's do an experiment and find out. So let's come over here, and I will create a page called petdisplay.html. And on that page, I would like to copy a little bit of my stuff from my other page. So, well, first off, I'll go ahead and create an HTML document, pass in this little tag right there. And all I want to do is see if I can read from local storage. So I'm going to go over here to cat adoption, and rather than waiting for a button to display the information, I am just going to try to grab it straight out. But first I have to put it in this JavaScript tag. So script, paste. Okay, so if this separate page can read this information from local storage, then it should just show up on the page when the page loads. So let me go ahead and hit save, and then I'll stop this, restart it, and there you go. It says cat name is Steven. And so even though the variable or the storage with a particular key was set on one page, I can view it on another page. All right, and then lastly, I'm going to add in one more thing that's not necessarily specific to local storage, but maybe of interest to some friends that I know. I'll say button type equals button, and what I want this to do is open new page. So I just want to show you another method that's available within JavaScript. So I'll say onClick equals, and I'm not going to write a custom one because this one already exists, and I'll say window.open, and then I'm going to just put in quotes here. Oops. And I can't put it in double quotes because I'm already within double quotes. So I have to use single quotes. I'm just going to name the HTML file that's in the same folder. So I'll say petdisplay.html. So the idea is that when I click on this last button that it's going to open up this other web page. All right, so I'm going to hit save, and let's go ahead and close everything, and then go live again. All right, so here's my page, and maybe I will rename the cat name to Robert and say add cat name saved, and if I click on open new page, it immediately opened up a new browser tab, and it went to the right page, and that information is still there. Okay, so formally, that's everything that I wanted to say about local storage. I think you've got a pretty good idea about how it works. It's relatively simple. It's almost the same as setting a variable, except with a regular variable, when you close your browser and reopen it again, the variable's gone. In this case, it sticks around for essentially forever. But there's another alternative to local storage, which is session storage. And so let me show you that real quick. The last thing I'd like to do is show you what happens when I replace the name local storage with session storage. It works very similarly. So I'll say session storage. So there are 3 places where I need to update this. And I will save and save. And let's go ahead and go live. So I'm going to launch the page. And I'll enter in some cat name like Harry, add cat, view cat, it's Harry, open page, says Harry, great. All right, let me close these extra tabs. But then let's watch what happens if I close this and I restart it. And if I do view cat, it says cat name's null. If I do open new page, it says cat name is null. Oh, that's interesting. Let's just see if we can figure out what's going on there. So if I right click and do inspect, and I go over to application, then here under an area called session storage, the information is not listed. Let's go ahead and make a little update. I'll say Stephen, add cat name saved. Then if I say view cat, it's there. If I come over here and reload the page, well, it's not picking it up as quickly as I would like. So let's just see if I do it like this. Okay, now the page is acting like it's been newly opened. And if I go over here to application, temporarily down in this other type of storage called session storage, I can see it there. But the difference between local storage and session storage is that every time I close my browser, these attributes, these variables, these key value pairs disappear. So depending on your application, you might use local storage and you might use session storage. Just out of curiosity, you might go to different places on the web like Amazon and look at the variables that are being stored permanently, or more accurately the items in local storage, and which things are just being put there temporarily. All right, so that concludes what I wanted to talk about as it relates to local and session storage in JavaScript.